finally here for the world to watch as India is all set to script history. Chandrayaan-3 is expected to land on the moon around 6 p.m. in the evening after a voyage of 40 days traveling through space. The landing attempt is scheduled for 6:04 p.m. and 2 hours before that, ISRO will be performing tests in order to determine conditions for a safe landing. The most critical phase of the mission will be the last 15 minutes of descent on the lunar surface. This is the last leg of the mission, which will involve intricate maneuvers, intense calculations, and changing the position of the spacecraft from horizontal to a vertical position. Now, if things continue to remain smooth, this will be a remarkable achievement. India will become the 4th country in the world to complete a soft landing on the lunar surface. All right, let's go across to my colleague Neha, who is joining us from Bengaluru. Neha, I believe you are at the ISRO headquarters in Bengaluru. Do give us some ground updates. All right, in fact, we seem to have lost that line with my colleague Neha, but of course we were speaking about Chandrayaan-3. In fact, a successful mission of the Chandrayaan-3 will make India only the 4th country to successfully land on the moon after the former USSR. We have Neha, who is back with us on the broadcast and who is joining us from Bengaluru. Neha, do give us some ground updates. How are the people of Bengaluru planning on witnessing this historic landing?
Well, yes, Ashna, understandably so. There's a lot of exhilaration, a lot of excitement in the air with a tad bit of nervousness as well. Remember that, we're bringing you this report right now from the ISRO headquarters over here in Bengaluru city in the year 2019. When we saw the mission of Chandrayaan-2, in fact, taking off, it was in this very building that we saw, with the same manner in which today we're seeing the bated breath of people. Remember that, it is, of course, going to be the crucial last 15 minutes, the landing sequence around 5:45 p.m. That is, of course, going to be the most crucial aspect of this entire mission. Having said that, a lot of aspects that need to be considered over here. If at all India manages to make this soft landing on the moon today, that would then put us in that club of 4 elite nations to be the only ones today to be able to do that. We're also now, of course, picking up that once, if at all, the mission, of course, is successful, and if we do make that soft landing on the moon, then likely that for a span of about 2 weeks is what we're seeing. About 14 days is how much the mission, in fact, is going to continue for. There are going to be a host of tests that are going to be conducted, in fact, during this span of time as well. On the whole, right here, where all of the action is going to be taking place at the ISRO headquarters in Bengaluru, we'll bring you all of the ground reports and the latest as and when things progress.
Absolutely, Neha. We'll keep coming back to you. Thanks very much for joining us and sharing all those updates. All right, we have with us on the broadcast Somak Ray Chaudhary, who's a Vice Chancellor of Ashoka University and astrophysicist. We also have Ratan Srivastava, MD at BGA India. He's also a space expert. Thank you so much for joining us here on Mirror Now. Let me first begin with Mr. Somak. My first question, of course, would be if you could please tell us about the final phase of landing, which is now also being referred to as the 15 minutes of terror. What do those 15 minutes of terror essentially entail?
Well, it's a pretty elaborate process. I think it was 15 minutes last time. This time it will be slightly longer, maybe 20 minutes or so. But what happens is that the spacecraft the lander itself is in an orbit around the moon, and from about 25 kilometers or so above the surface, right about 15 to 20 minutes that time, it's going to start to descend. And it is a very intricate process because a lot of fail-safe has been put in now so that the mistakes that were made or the errors that happened last time are not repeated. So it's done in 4 stages. It'll first be ejected from that 25 kilometers on the orbit towards the surface at a very high speed, about roughly 10 times the speed of a normal aircraft in motion, and then it's going to then be slowly braked over a period of 10-11 minutes, and that at this time it's still horizontal, and then it's going to be turned, and then about a kilometer above the surface of the moon, it is going to hover, and this is a new thing. It has a much larger area than last time, about 2 kilometers or so. It's going to hover over the surface of the moon to find a safe spot to land, so that it doesn't land at the edge of a crater or on some place where it's going to topple over. So this is a very intricate process, because you can see so many stages and so much control that needs to happen, and all this is controlled from Bangalore from ISRO headquarters, as it kind of hovers and finds the right space to land. That's the period of terror for us. We are sort of we'd be watching with clenched teeth and fingers crossed, and then this time there is also a lot of redundancy built in case something does not work, something else will work, etc., etc. So we are pretty confident it'll all go through in the end. But this very complicated procedure of landing is what makes it so dangerous and so unpredictable.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for breaking that down for us. I would request you to stay on with us. We'll quickly cut across to my colleague Ishika, who is joining us from the national capital. Ishika, do give us a sense of how the people of Delhi are really going to be witnessing and viewing this historic landing.
Well, Ashna, definitely it is, the ultimate day for India, the D-Day, and everybody, in fact, the people of Delhi are very much excited. I am present at the Nehru Planetarium, and in fact, we showed you the module, but let me also show you that there's a screen that is present right here, which is in fact also showing you the countdown for the landing. You can clearly see 6 hours and 37 minutes are left for, in fact, for it to land, and then 6 hours, 56 minutes for the touchdown. So definitely very crucial part will be how the Vikram lander will be doing the soft landing there. Because certainly, the experts say that the ISRO will not be able to control it. All of it will be on the Vikram lander. So definitely, when the Vikram lander is going to land around 6:04, that will be a very, crucial moment, and all of the India will be waiting to witness it. Let me also tell you, at the Nehru Planetarium, there are special arrangements that have been made here. You can clearly see here that I will ask my cameraman to, in fact, pan the camera and show you everything. The module is present there to explain it to the people. Not just that, in fact, special screens will also be set up for the webcasting of the landing procedure at around 5:30. And inside this very hall, there are certain shows on moon, on Chandrayaan, that will also be showed to the people of Delhi here in just a short time from now. So definitely you can clearly see it is in a celebration mode. In fact, they're already celebrating this whole month for this. And in fact, not just that, the people are also waiting, and that is why all these special arrangements have been done. The Prime Minister, who couldn't be here physically, will in fact be joining it virtually as well. So all the eyes will be on that. Over to you.
Absolutely, Ishika. Everybody is waiting with bated breath. We'll keep coming back to you through the day. Let's also now quickly cut across to my colleague Swarali, who is joining us from Pune. Swarali, over to you.
Yes, let me tell you, right now we are with Pramod Kaye, sir, who is former director of ISRO, and now we are going to talk with him about the excitement and the technicalities of Chandrayaan-3 as entire country waits for its soft landing on the South Pole, and it's going to be a historic moment for India. Welcome, sir, to Mirror Now. Thank you, sir, for joining us, and I would like to ask a few hours remaining for the landing, and of course, we all know that's high chances of India going to observe historic moment. What do you have to say?
It is really fantastic that such an event is taking place, and we are able to witness that. I was able to participate in some of the things, but for rest of the people, I must say that it's a really exciting time that after a long time, such an opportunity has come again. We tried it in 2019 with Chandrayaan-2. The orbiter went into the proper orbit, but the lander crashed. These kinds of things happen, and with the errors that we found, whatever we learned from the failures, everything has now been corrected, and I am quite confident that this time we will be completely successful.
Right. So for our viewers to know, at the time of descent, it's going to be self-automated. So how is it going to be? How our Indian scientists have designed it?
All right. At a 30-kilometer height away from the surface of the moon, the speed with which it is moving will be 1.6 kilometers per second. And when it is moving, at that instant, at the perigee, that is the nearest point, there will be only horizontal velocity and no vertical velocity.
Okay.
Once we start reducing the speed, then it will start coming inside. And as coming towards the surface of the moon, so it will have vertical velocity also. And when that moment comes, as we keep on reducing the velocity, we'll do this reduction from 1.6 kilometers per second. We'll bring it down to something like about 600 meters per second kind of velocity. And at that time, there will be vertical velocity of about maybe 60 meters per second, because the moon is attracting it. Once the velocity has been reduced, at that particular time, at that particular time, it gets out of the orbit and it will now going to land on the moon. But if we don't control it, it is going to crash.
Okay.
So we have to keep on using our small thruster engines which are there. There are 4 of them. They'll be fired. The same engines are used to reduce the velocity both vertically as well as horizontally.
Okay.
After it comes to a height of about 300 to 400 meters, then the fine braking will start. Initially, it is a coarse braking, and later on, it will be a fine braking. The total process will take about maybe 15 minutes or so. Now, to make certain that we are able to land properly, we have the laser altimeters, which measures the height from the surface of the moon. And we also have a backup, that's the radio frequency altimeter.
Right.
So there are 2 of
Mr.
them.
Ali, thanks very much for joining us here. We'll keep coming back to you, of course, through the day. Going back to our guest now, Mr. Srivastav, my next question is to you. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to come back to you again. We'll have to cut across to our colleague Pradeep, who is joining us live on the broadcast. Pradeep, over to you.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. See, everybody today is talking about the moon, and I am with the constellation of this little star and smile on their faces, carrying Tiranga in their hand, India in their heart, and prayers on their lips. Everybody is waiting for that moment when finally the Chandrayaan is going to land. How much is the Josh? Bharat Mata ki? Bharat Mata ki? क्या कहना चाहोगे?
No padai, Chandrayaan, yes.
Says no homework, no padai today. It is only Chandrayaan. That is what they are talking about. And you can see here, the principal of the school, he's trying to motivate youngsters and he's singing song with them. Nayi umange, ab ye hai nayi ka. Hum Hindustani. Hum Hindustani. Hum Hindustani. Hum Hindustani. छोड़ो कल की बातें, कल की बात पुरानी, पहुंचे है भारत अपना देश छोड़ चुके हैं, नया जोम है, नई उमंगे, अब है नई कहानी. हम हिंदुस्तानी, हम हिंदुस्तानी. How big is the day today for you, Principal Sir?
It's really a very historic day for all the Indians today, because all are keeping their eyes fixed towards the evening hours, and I've already told all the students and the staff members that right from 5:27 till 6:04 p.m. onwards, they should be glued to their television set. And one thing which JKPS Kunjwani has really done great, that I've instructed already all the teachers from nursery to class 12, there should not be any homework, any home assignment.
That is what actually the
given to children.
So it's a big day. आज कोई होमवर्क नहीं होगा. चंद्रयान, याहू! खुश है? कोई डांस कर सकता है हमारे साथ? कौन करेगा? जरा कोई धुन बजा दी जाए अच्छी सी. आ जाओ यहाँ पे डांस. Yeah. Yeah. Celebration. It's a celebration time. There was a time.
Pradeep, thanks very much for joining us with all those inputs. Of course, clearly excitement in the air across the country. We'll go back to our guests. As I was saying, my next question is to Mr. Srivastava. Mr. Srivastava, why is soft landing more challenging on the south side of the moon? All right, we'll try and reconnect with Mr. Srivastava. Let's pose the very same question to Mr. Somak. Mr. Somak, as I was asking Mr. Srivastava, why is soft landing more challenging on the south side of the moon?
Yeah, so actually, there is a big difference between the far side, the south side of the moon, and the north side. We don't know exactly why, but on the south side of the moon, there are very deep craters and very high mountains. So the surface is very jagged. On the other side of the moon, the side of the moon that we see more often, there are quite a lot of plain areas, and we can see also craters. But there are almost no plain areas on the far side of the moon. And that is why it is very difficult to find a place where, as you can see, it's a horizontal. It's horizontal. Then you turn around, and it has to land vertically on legs, and has to find a place where it won't topple over. And so, to find a place where it's a plain surface where it lands, it's very hard on the other side. It's one of the reasons why it hasn't been tried before. And it also makes it also very interesting because that side of the moon has not been explored. There are quite a lot of things that we think are there. Because of this jagged surface, there are very large areas where light does not reach, and it's very cold, and quite a lot of interesting finds might await us there, including water. And so this is connected. It is a hazardous place, which also makes it more interesting.
Right. If you could also speak to us about the finds a little more and the scientific experiments which are going to be carried out once that soft landing is achieved.
So we have a window of 14 days. It's unfortunate because after that, as you know, on the moon, the day lasts 14 days, Earth days, that is, and then the light goes. And when the light goes, it becomes so cold that the instruments that we have on board will stop working and it won't start up again. So we have that window of 14 days. In that, there are quite a lot of experiments that are planned. The main experiments are as follows. For example, from Chandrayaan-2, there was very good evidence that there is water on the moon. Chandrayaan-2 detected unequivocal signs of water, but of course could not detect where it is. And one of the reasons to believe the water is in the southern part of the moon is, as I said, there are these large shaded areas in which the water can be in ice form. And that is one of the things that the instruments will look for. But in addition to that, there are certain chemicals that we will look for, because moon has a very thin atmosphere and not like the Earth, but it doesn't, it has a very thin layer of air, and it's very close to the surface, and it's very important to know the composition of that atmosphere. Because in future plans, when we will have establishments on the moon, it will matter what the air is made of. Also on the surface and just below the surface, we're looking for a few things. As I said, water can be just below the surface, but also certain minerals and certain elements that one is looking for various reasons. One of the reasons being that the moon and the earth were formed at the same time from the same material, and by studying the moon, one can actually learn quite a bit about the earth, how it was formed, and how the earth is composed. They were made of the same material, and on the surface of the moon, or just below the surface of the moon, there are materials that we might not see on the surface of the earth or in an accessible form. So the moon is a very close twin of the earth, and we are studying the moon to study the earth. So these are some of the major things. There are quite a lot of other things that will also be studied, which are in the various instruments in the rover.
Right. Another important aspect I would like to touch upon is communication. All right, I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Somak. We have Mr. Srivastava, who's also with us on the broadcast. Mr. Srivastava, I hope you can hear me now. So my question, which I would like to pose to you, is I would like for you to touch upon another very important aspect about this, that is communication. Yesterday, ISRO had in fact put out a post, and I'll be quoting that, Chandrayaan-3 mission, welcome buddy, CH-2 orbiter formally welcomed CH-3 lander module, two-way communication has been established between the two. Can you break this down for our viewers and tell us about the two-way communication as has been mentioned?
So thank you, and I'm sorry I just got left out in the middle of your last question. So it's a very good question that you've asked, and the communication between ISRO and the Chandrayaan would be done by the Indian Deep Space Network. And the Indian Deep Space Network operates via two mediums. That is, it speaks to Chandrayaan-3, which is the lander module, and it speaks to Chandrayaan-2, which is already orbiting since 2019. So the only system in this is the rover, with whom the communication cannot be done. So the communication between rover and Chandrayaan-2 will be done, and Chandrayaan-2, that is to say the Vikram lander, would be speaking to ISRO. Chandrayaan-2 is also speaking to ISRO, which is orbiting right now. But what we must know is this, that there's a time lag between a command given or a communication done between ISRO and the Chandrayaan-2 or Chandrayaan-3. It will be taking about 2 to 3 minutes minimum before any communication which is done by ISRO telemetry stations or any of the telemetry stations to Chandrayaan-2 lander, which is Vikram. Only the rover cannot be spoken to directly.
Right. Another thing I would like for you to reflect on is what worked in Chandrayaan-2, and how are the learnings from Chandrayaan-2 going to help us in making this mission successful?
So everything that Chandrayaan-2 has been has taught us, right, is gone into making sure that Chandrayaan-3 works. So all the redundancies that have been built into the system have been through the learnings of Chandrayaan-2. When we had Chandrayaan-2, we saw how the descent could not be controlled. There were 5 engines, now we have 4 engines, and as we understand that the landing would be probably done, from the vertical landing would be probably done on 2 engines. So it makes it more stable. The learnings that came out of the Chandrayaan-2 orbiting in terms of the landing space that has to be done. So there's a greater landing area which is available to Chandrayaan-3 as opposed to Chandrayaan-2. The landing location has moved to almost 70 degrees south, which is about almost 100 kilometers away from the old landing station. And as Professor Chakravarti was just saying, I could catch a bit of it, was this, that we know that the southern part is more difficult and uncharted than the equatorial moon, which has been charted many times. They've had landings over there as well. But only a couple of attempts have been made, mostly unsuccessful, apart from China, which has landed also somewhere near south. But Israel tried, Japan tried, we tried, of course, Russia tried right now, were not successful because this is uncharted. It is more difficult. The regnant or the moon dust is higher over here, and that would also be a challenge for us when we are going to land, because once the descent starts, we cannot control anything except into the algorithm which has been built into the Chandrayaan-3 to control the descent. And I think this is one of the high points, because the algorithm, the artificial intelligence, the onboard computers would decide where to land, how to land, and there has been an inbuilt flexibility given to the lander so that they can choose the spot to land in case they find that the spot that they are landing is not correct.
Right. Mr. Srivastava, I'm going to have to interrupt you there. We're a little short on time, but thank you so much for sparing your time and joining us here on Mirror Now on this historic day. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, with that, we are slipping into a short break. News and updates will continue once we return.